Hey guys, I'm Ben Minal, and I'm sat with a true icon. I think that's fair to say, not only in our drumming community, but in the broader musical landscape over the last 4 decades. So, Steve Gadd, it is an absolute pleasure to be sat with you today.
Oh,
and thank you for taking the time to talk, and let's get into some music and some drums.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
So, played last night? How was the show?
It was good. There were a lot of people, there were a lot of bands, and we didn't do a sound check, but we got up there and did it, and it was great.
Yeah, this was Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, what a iconic venue.
Yeah, it is an iconic venue, and also I was there with. We've been touring with Bonnie Raitt's been opening up, for us.
Yeah.
And I'm playing with James Taylor, and then last night, Bonnie and James were playing before the last act was Paul Simon, and I've known Bonnie for years and have known Paul for a long time, so I saw a lot of old friends.
Yeah. And
so
what was that like to have a bill where you've exactly like with Paul Simon, and to see that from the other side, and to all be on the same bill, and there to be so much musical history there? Was that a good moment?
It was. I watched the show last night from the stage, from side of the stage, and Paul sounds great, and it brought back a lot of memories.
Yeah.
Because I played a lot of that music. I've played a lot of that music before, and it reminded me of the people I played it with, like Richard T. and Michael Brecker, Vincent and Guinea. These guys have all, Vincent just recently passed, but and I mean, and then everybody that's still with us, that reminded me of all of them. And I saw like some old friends backstage, tour managers that I've worked with over the years.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
That's awesome. So for you, growing up and getting into drums, am I right in thinking your uncle was a drummer in the army, and then about 7 got you said take some drum lessons?
He was a drummer in high school.
Okay.
And then when he got out of the army, he was marching in a Veterans Day parade.
Right.
That's the first drum I ever saw.
Wow.
But he was my uncle, and my family were very supportive. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all. I didn't know the details. I just so that moment. Did you see him playing, and did you just feel that connection? Did it excite you? Was that the first thing?
Well, the first thing I remember was seeing this red parade drum, and I was sitting on the chair, and then obviously we must have gone to the parade, and I saw my uncle playing, and after that then I must have shown an interest, and my uncle and I would sit and listen to John Philip Sousa marches, and we'd play on little pieces of wood. He showed me how to hold some sticks.
Brilliant.
And in those days it was before TV, so the whole family would be in the sitting room. My parents and my brother and I were living with my grandparents, my dad's mom and dad, and my dad's brother. So, and it was fantastic, because the whole family would sit around at night, and my uncle and I would play along with the marches, and sometimes my dad would pick up sticks and play, sometimes my brother would. And my grandparents and my uncle had horses, so we had to go to the barn every day, and it was a great way. Those were great years in my life. It was a lot of love.
Yeah, quite pure as well, really, because I guess there's so much more distraction now for people, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, you back in those days, you got information from other people.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this thing where you could go online and get it, you know what I mean? So it was how much people paid attention to you and how much they saw, you know, what your interests were and how they supported that was important.
Absolutely. I mean, so it was actually my uncle that got me playing as well.
Your own?
It was my uncle that got me playing
was
as
it?
well. Yeah, he's always played, and he has a studio. And I remember being a kid and just going and watching him play, and just thinking, this is so exciting. Like, what a crazy thing. And he actually encouraged me to start, and he got me my first drum kit and taught me my first stuff. You know, and was like, yeah, I owe that to him really.
That's great. I mean, that's similar to the way I started.
Yeah.
My uncle got me my first drum kit, you know, and it's important to have that kind of support.
Yeah. So you went from that, and then by the age of 11, you'd sat in with someone like Dizzy Gillespie. Like, what was that? What was that like to be that age and playing like that? Well, I mean, did it feel normal? Did it feel?
Well, you know, it wasn't like. The thing about it wasn't how good I was playing. That was the thing. It was the fact that I had the opportunity to, you know, to see these people play as close as we are.
Yeah.
So I could watch them that close, and they're, you know, the club brought these big name acts in all the time. It was before theaters were bringing music in. So these guys, even famous artists like Dizzy, Oscar Peterson, Gene Krupa, they were all coming and playing in this club.
Yeah.
And you know, Max Roach, Art Blakey, and what was great about that time and those artists were how and the way it was going. You could get to know them because they would be in a place a week at a time. They would come back repeatedly, so you know they'd remember you from the time before.
Yeah.
And my parents would bring me in to hear these guys, and also Chuck Mangioni's parents brought him and his brother and his sister, Chuck Gapp and Josephine, in to hear these guys. And you know, after a while, you know, people would strike up a conversation. They'd say the kids play, you know. They would let us sit in.
Amazing.
So the thing that was special was how supportive those guys were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, as good as I was, I mean, I wasn't at the level where I could, you know, I was on their level, but they were very encouraging.
Yeah.
And you know, so it wasn't just about that I loved to play or I was that good. It was just they were special people in what they gave. You know what I mean? My family was the ones encouraging that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They and Chucky's parents. I mean, the kids, we didn't go up and say, "Can we sit in?"
Yeah.
You know, that would have been disrespectful. You know, but it all went through the grown-ups and it was, you know, and it was fun. And then they'd come back in and they, you know, like, I mean, Dizzy used to go over to Chuck Mangioni's family's house for spaghetti.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know,
So
I mean,
they came close.
Yeah, you know, because they came back, they returned. You know.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Different times, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot different. It was a lot different then than it is now.
And probably partly, like you said, because there was the clubs were bringing people in and it was more intimate.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could sit, like I said, this close and watch, you know, Gene Krupa from the side. So I could see his foot, you know, I could see it. I mean, that's the way I learn the best, by being close and being able to see what someone's doing.
Yeah.
You know, if you go to a concert today, everything is so far away. It's like a different thing, you know. And there's nothing like video or it's good online, but there's something about being there that's really
you can't replace
clears it up. There's a clarity there. So it was great. It was a great way to learn.
And so you had 3 years in the army before you really dove into the music career, and was it with the Jazz Ambassadors?
No, I was in first of all, I was in college for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then 3 years in the Army, in the Army Field Band.
Yeah.
And that was a concert band, and after I was in that concert band for a few months, they formed a big band, like a Buddy Rich, Woody Herman kind of band. And eventually I was able to get into that, and we rehearsed every day. We toured 6 weeks, a couple of times a year to promote the Army, and we do concerts at different high schools and things.
What was that like? Did the kind of classic Army discipline permeate into how you learned there? And did that?
No, once we finished basic training. Then when I reported to Fort Meade, I was like an E5. That's right after basic training. So there wasn't that, give me push-ups and all that saluting and stuff like that. But there were some rules, and there was, we rehearsed every day, and it was a good band, and they had some good arrangers. So these guys were writing arrangements all the time, and we were rehearsing them. So on my sight reading got really to another level. But I see a lot of the benefits of it when I look back. When I was in at the time, if I had a choice to be in the Army or not be in the Army, I would have chosen not to be in the Army. But back in those years, like Vietnam, like if you weren't in school, you could be over there shooting someone. So, and I enlisted before I got my draft papers.
Right.
So the last year of college, I auditioned for different military bands, the ones in Washington, and I was accepted into the Army Field Band. And then when I graduated from college in June, later on that month or in July, I got my draft notice. So that's when I enlisted and accepted the position in the Army Field.
Right. Wow. When you look back at your playing and how it's evolved from the start, was there a period of time that really stands out to you as the time that you made the most improvement, and what caused that, or do you feel like it's been fairly linear as you've gone through?
It feels fairly linear. I don't really, sit and look back a lot, unless someone asks me to. And but just having not really thought about it a lot, it just seemed like everything sort of fell into place. That's the way it feels. And if I look back on it and analyzed it, it might take on a different meaning. But
that's interesting.
I haven't really done that.
Yeah, I mean, so some people feel that the same, that it's just continual improvement.
But I'll tell you this. I mean, I remember that the '70s and early '80s, the recording thing was ridiculous. It was, there was so much work. It was unbelievable.
Crazy.
So,
what could you give somebody a sense of what that felt like to be doing up to like 3 sessions a day? Back
in the '70s, they would. The way they would book sessions a record date would be 10 to 1, 2 to 5, and 7 to 10. They booked them in 3-hour things, and plus there might have been overtime. Jingles were booked for an hour and 20, and there were a lot of record dates being done that way.
Yeah.
The schedule was kept 3 hours, you know what I mean? Lunch, 3 hours. And, you know, that was the way we did it in the early 70s. And then there were also the other dates where people would come in with a lead sheet, and they weren't that organized. But when that started to happen, those sessions weren't booked like 10 to 1, 2 to 5, 7 to 10. They were sort of booked, you know, they wanted you for the day, you know what I mean? So that's how things started to change, you know, later in the 70s. And then they started blocking out time. You know, an artist might block out a week.
Yeah.
And with open end, you know what I'm saying? So that's how the recording thing changed in the way they booked things.
Yeah.
And now I'm not really sure. I'm not
so
really
different.
involved. I'm on the road a lot. I do albums, but I'm not involved in recording like I used to be. Like when I lived in New York, and you get a call today to do something tonight or tomorrow. You know what I mean?
It was that immediate.
Well, that's how it was, that immediate back then. And I think that if you want to do whatever recording is left, you'd have to be in those places.
Yeah.
And, you know, and be available. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like when you're looking at, you know, a career as a drummer, kind of trying to break through and come up now, it's the session opportunity feels completely different. You know, like I think you see a lot of people going to music college saying, I'm going to be a session drummer, and then, you know, it seems like the smart advice is to build as many other things around that as you can. You know,
I mean, there aren't those kind of sessions. That industry doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
There is like a recording industry, and you know, and people get in are people that, you know, are good players that I don't even know how you get in it. You know what I mean? Like now, you know.
And there's also a lot of people recording from home studios now,
right.
and that seems to have taken quite a segment of that. People going, look, I can do a session, but it's different than, you know, being in a city, being a resident. You know,
right. Well, guys they'll send the thing and they'll do it at their home studio. Yeah. There's a lot of that.
That's changed the game. You know, it's evolved a lot. I mean, it would have been amazing to see that scene as it was then. It just feels like such a
it was a lot of fun.
Thriving.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. We had a good time.
Yeah.
You know.
I've heard some people say, you know, there's been so much done on drums now, it's hard to innovate. Where do you innovate? And I just wondered whether you had any thoughts on someone that's trying to find their voice or be individual in the kit. Is there a mindset or an attitude that you could share that would help someone develop their individuality?
It's something that's in there that you have to nurture, you know, and not be afraid to nurture. I don't really know other, you know, I think it's about looking at other people and being inspired enough to try and copy what they're doing. There's, you know, I mean, this is the way I learned, you know. I listened to people and I love drums, and there was, you know, there's so many good drummers out there. I mean, a lot of them could do something that I'd want to know how to do. I'd try to learn how to do, and I would, you know, try to do that. I'd want to be able to do what they did.
Yeah.
And I think that that attitude is still with me now. I mean, if I had time to really listen a lot, there's people doing things that I would like to be able to do. I mean, when I hear a guy do something on the drums that inspires me, I want to know it. I want that to be a part of me.
Yeah.
So I think that feeling about your instrument is a big part of giving you the longevity to keep at it. You know, it's about loving the instrument and loving other guys and what they're doing and wanting to know how to do it, and being able to learn it and apply it and enjoy that musically And each thing could be opening a door to a different kind of music that you'll get to play.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the drums, but it's about what that drummer did in a certain kind of music, and you can apply that to different styles. And I think that you need that kind of interest.
Yeah.
And enjoyment from it to dig in deep enough to where it's not about you're doing it to get here. It's about you're just doing it because you like doing it.
Because
that's what you want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it.
It's not about doing this because you want to do that. It's about I'm doing this because this is I like doing it.
Yeah, and that will always lead you to a better place. Because it's I guess it sounds cliched, but it's doing it for the right reason.
Well, it's you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're doing it because you got something inside that you want to say. You don't know what it is, or you got something inside you want to do. Yeah. You really don't know what it is. It's just a feeling that you get when you hear people do something that inspires you, that it makes you want to learn more. And it still does today when I hear guys do that.
And for me, it's seeing people play live is so important, because you listen to records and you hear that playing in context, and that is obviously, you can hear stuff that excites you, and that's incredible. But for me, when I see someone do something really just that makes me feel something, and it's live, that gets me, that really fires everything up, because I'll come home from that gig and be like, man, I just want to, like, that was cool.
Yeah, that's the thing, that's the spark that you gotta keep fueling.
Yeah.
And it's just about doing that keeps the spark going, and then everything else is a result of that.
Yeah.
I mean, if everything works, if you're lucky, you know what I mean? But even if it isn't, you're still like that frame of mind and that interest and that devotion is healthy.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, because I mean, you can get caught up in trying to be maybe strategic about what you're doing with drums. You're trying to build a career or something, and obviously you have to play that game to an extent. But what I like about what you're saying is that how it feels to you inside and how it makes you feel is the most important thing, because that's what's going to drive you over the long game, because that's what's going to really excite you to keep.
Yeah, and the inspiration is when you learn something and you can apply it to the music with different people in different situations, or apply something else that you heard someone else do in different, you know what I mean? It's like rewarding.
Yeah.
And it helps, it helps the music get to a higher level, and it helps you share that with other people, and that fuel, that kind of camaraderie and love of what you're doing, and sharing it with other people that love what they're doing, that's good too. That those kind of grooves are, once you feel that, you want to be able to, you try to feel it again.
Yeah.
You try to, you want that situation again. So it's not specifically about any one thing. I mean, music is the thing that makes it happen, but those good feelings are it's like you're sharing love with other people at the same time, and being able to do something that you're good at.
Yeah.
It's very rewarding.
In my life, playing on stage and playing music that I love is the most fulfilling experience that I've ever had. I feel more me than anything else that I do in my life. And there's moments where you just it just feels good, it feels right, and it feels like those are the moments that convey as well, when it's just, you're just really feeling it.
And for me, it's not about it's not just about what I'm playing. It's about the way that whoever I'm playing with, how whatever I'm doing, how the goal is to make them comfortable enough to sound the best they can sound.
Yeah.
And when you can convey that you convey it to the artist, you convey it to the other musicians around you, and everybody feels that, and that gets conveyed to an audience.
Yeah.
So, and all I'm doing is trying to do the best I can right here for that person with these people. And the reward is, if you can lock it in, it ends up getting out there to everybody, and it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've played with so many world-class musicians. Like, what do you think it is about your playing, your approach, your creativity that has made you and makes you so in demand? Can you distill it?
I think, I practice a lot, and I understand and I love a lot of different kinds of music. There isn't any kind of music really that I can say that I love most all music, you know what I mean? And, and I've practiced a lot of different things, and I've played a lot of different kinds of music. So I think that, and I try as hard as I can. So I think that's it, but I can't answer it because you'd have to ask them.
Yeah. But to you it feels like, so it feels like you're bringing a love for a wide range of music.
Well, I'm bringing me, and I'm going to do the best I can.
Yeah.
If I don't know that kind of music and they can play something I can listen to, I'll try to emulate that. I'll do, and I enjoy doing that because it helps me learn.
Yeah. So, to you, what makes a great sounding drummer, and from a musical perspective? If you hear someone, you just go, they've got it. What do you think that is?
Well, dynamics, how they blend in with, the band. Just, when you see them, I can see when a guy plays, if the guys that have that certain thing inside that keeps them going, any of the guys you can mention, I'm sure have it. Dave, Vinny, Steve Jordan, Jim Keltner.
Mm-hmm.
I could name a lot of guys because I listen. I learn from a lot of people, and the ones that play with that kind of passion, they're just beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
you just feel it.
Yeah, it's the sound, their dynamics, their groove, the everything.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. It's that's why I was interested in your perspective, because it's so hard to communicate. You just know. It just makes you feel good when you listen to it. You just go, yeah. It's hard to describe. Do you have any routines or warm-ups or exercises that keep your body in good check for playing so?
I think keeping your body in good shape is part of it. So I try to do some jogging.
Yeah.
I think that, keeping yourself physically on the right path is important for, just being on a good level for whatever gig comes in.
Yeah.
And then if I go from a gig where I'm not playing real hard to one where, if I had to go and play with Eric Clapton and the energy starts out and it's, the only way to be in shape for that kind, to go from this gig to that gig, is to do some cardio. There's no way you could just sit in a room and play that intensely for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't train that just by drumming.
Not just by drumming.
Yeah.
You know, that you keep yourself physically on a certain level, and then you know, like I warm up before I play. I have certain things that I do with rudiments, a lot of rudiments with different kind of flam things, and I sort of try to make up different things that I can do that you get the blood flowing. And you know, and that's, you know, that before I have to go on stage, I do that. With whoever I'm playing with, I do that. And then when I'm not working, if I have time, you know, at home, you know, I would sit at the drums and I would do that kind of stuff to stay, you know, connected, you know, not get tight.
Yeah.
I would continue to jog and try to stay physically on a good level, and then I would work, say, at the set of drums and just try to see what I come up with.
Yeah.
You know, some days it might be, I might go out and for 5 minutes and nothing's happened. Another day I might go out and everything feels good and I'll be there, you know, for a couple of hours or an hour, and not with anything in particular that I'm doing, but just, you know, maybe, you know, I might start out with something I left off the day before that was interesting that I tried to do, you know. You know, when I sit behind the drums, those certain things come up, and you know, if I'm consistent with it, you know, every day, then I can sort of keep remembering what they are and develop them. If I'm not, it could be a good idea, but I won't have developed it, and you know, like, and I'll touch on it later and come back and revisit it. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know. It's a process.
Yeah.
It's not any kind of certain thing.
Yeah. But I guess the essence of it, you're always in flow with it. You're always doing something. You keep it fit.
Yeah, I don't want to not. Like, you know, I don't want to be away from the instrument for. Yeah. Especially, you know, when you get older, it's not easy. You know, if you leave it for a while, I think it's not easy to go back. No. You know what I mean? Or it's harder to get back in shape. I'd rather just sort of try to stay connected with it.
Maintain.
Yeah.
So now, what do you listen to now? Like, what is there anything that you've kind of discovered in the last year or so that's really fired you up?
You know, I've been listening to just what I've had to work on.
Yeah.
Mostly. But there are things that I'd like to, you know, have the time to check out. And I just, you know, when I'm doing one thing, I sort of like to just keep my focus on that.
Yeah.
And you know, but when it's time to listen, there's some things like Mark Giuliani. He's a great drummer. I'd love to, you know, I know that he can play, and I'd love to check him out more.
Yeah.
Chris Dave. You know,
he's doing some really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Distorting.
Right.
The feel.
I would like to, you know, get into that, you know, spend a little bit more time with that. I like Questlove. I think that he's really good, man. Good musician.
Crazy.
There's some great young players, man. Some of the guys that came out of church, you know, Aaron Spears and Gerald Hayward. Yeah. Those guys are, you know, like masters of what they do, and I have a deep respect for those guys. That, I mean, they sort of, you know, they're doing their thing. You know what I mean? It's like, and they've developed it. You know, they've taken it to another level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's.
And crazy. I would love to be able to learn how to do what they do.
That's really interesting, because it's quite opposed to, you know, like the sound of, say, Aaron Spears and you is very different, you know, obviously. And but it's I don't know, I find it heartwarming that you listen to those guys and still feel inspired by that. That's really cool.
Right, but I mean, it's like the sound is one thing, but what they do rhythmically and technically,
yeah, and
groove-wise,
yeah,
that's what kills me.
Yeah,
you know, that's what I want to be able to do. Their feels.
Yeah,
you know, that's how I'm inspired. It's not about I have to have their setup and that sound to do it. It's like you could those kind of things. You could play it on a table and chair, those grooves, and that would sound good.
Yeah,
you know.
So it's the ideas.
Yeah, it's the ideas and their approach and their passion and what they've heard. They've had to been listening to people before them to be inspired to do what they're doing. So there's a lot of information there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For all of those guys that I mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the idea, is that really, you know, if you take that back to its roots, it's all coming from the same place. It's just taking permutations of ideas and putting things together in ways that haven't been put together before.
Yeah, I mean that's what we do. That when somebody inspires you, you try to, you know, take it and make it comfortable for you. You know, the closest you can. And if you can do that, then it can open you up for some ideas inspired by that, rather than trying to do it exactly the way they did it and settle for that.
Yeah.
Try and do it as close to the way they did it, but in a way that's comfortable for you.
Yeah. So
that it inspires you to grow musically. You know?
Love it. So I have a question that I always ask people that I'm really inspired by. What would you tell the 18-year-old Steve Gadd?
Well, I mean, I would say to, you know, listen to a lot of different people. You know, emulate as many people as you can. Mm-hmm. You know, try to, you know, don't just try to do what one guy does the way he does it. You know, it's like learning from, I mean, I would just share how I've learned. It's like learning from all different guys that played different things good. Latin, you know, Brazilian, you know, an orchestra snare drum roll, those guys, the way they play. Mm. I'm inspired by that. By drum corps, you know, rudiments. You know, anything that has to do with drumming. You know, I heard a fife and drum corps on Memorial Day in Pittsfield, Massachusetts at the parade. Man, I followed them down the street. These guys were great, and they just had like about 6 or 8 snare drummers and 3 rudimental bass drummers, and they were playing. The stuff was great,
killing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like the real deal. It was like what they were doing was some old stuff that, you know, like old rudimental drum solos and they were respectful to it. They were doing it the best they could, that thing. And man, that was inspiring to me. It made me want to go back and learn about that kind of drumming.
Yeah.
You know? And there's so many different kinds of drumming. You know, and when I hear guys that can really do it, it makes me I want to be able to do what they do. Yeah. Because it feels so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, and if I can do something, if I can do something, the joy of making other people feel good is great. That's a fantastic thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I've never heard it put like that about really what we're doing when we're playing. But yeah, it is sharing that joy and making other people feel good in the same way that it's like it's a cycle, and that you hear something that inspires you, makes you feel good. That passion, that joy inspires more practice, more performance, and then if you can make that a true expression, and other people feel that joy.
Right, and not egotistically, but you know, musically.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, so it's just that there's something about drums that's inside me, and it got me when I was 3 years old when I saw that snare drum, that red parade drum, and it gets me. You know, I see guys play. I mean, it's like I love it.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Cool, man. Well, I know you've got a busy day, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. It's been
it was my pleasure.
It's been something I'll never forget. Thank you.
Oh, I hope it was okay.
Man, it was a pleasure to rack your brains and get some insight and some inspiration. So, Steve Gadd, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben.
Good to meet you.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.